Your alarm clock doesn't just buzz. It checks the morning traffic report and wakes you up 10 minutes earlier because there's an accident on your route. As it does, it sends a signal to your coffee maker, which starts brewing your favorite dark roast. The lights in your bedroom slowly fade up to mimic a natural sunrise, and your smart speaker begins to softly play a curated morning playlist while reading you the day's top headlines and your calendar appointments. You step into the shower, and the water is already at your preferred temperature. This isn't a scene from a futuristic sci-fi movie. For a growing number of people, this is just Tuesday. Now, we've all become acquainted with the smart devices that have infiltrated our lives. The watches that track our steps, the thermostats that learn our habits, the doorbells that let us see who's visiting from halfway across the world. But these gadgets are just the most visible ambassadors of a much larger, quieter, and more profound technological revolution. It's called the Internet of Things, or IoT, and it's about far more than just convenience. It's a world where virtually every object, from a jet engine to a hospital bed, from a tractor on a farm to a shipping container on the ocean, is being fitted with tiny sensors and a connection to the internet. We are building a global nervous system. We are giving the physical world the ability to see, hear, feel, and communicate. We are teaching it to talk to us and to talk to itself. This explosion of connectivity is poised to reshape our world on a scale we haven't seen since the dawn of the internet itself. But with this monumental power comes monumental questions. Welcome, my friends, to a new episode from English Plus Podcast. Today, we're plugging into the Internet of Things and trying to understand the ghost in the machine. We're going on a journey to demystify this ubiquitous buzzword and explore its staggering implications. We're going to ask the burning questions. What exactly is the Internet of Things beyond just a smart toaster that can burn your bread and then tweet about it? How is this technology already running invisibly inside our cities, our factories, and our farms to make them more efficient and sustainable? And of course, we have to talk about the dark side. In a world where everything is connected, how do we protect ourselves from hackers and security threats? When your refrigerator knows your eating habits and your car knows your every move, who owns that data? And what are they doing with it? Are we building a seamless utopian future, or are we sleepwalking into a privacy nightmare? This topic is vast and evolving daily, and trust me, one podcast episode, no matter how good it is, can only offer a glimpse into this new reality. True comprehension requires ongoing curiosity, a commitment to read beyond the headlines, and a willingness to engage with the complexities. There are no shortcuts to understanding the future. Consider this your orientation, your first step into a much larger, interconnected world. So, let's get connected and explore the anatomy of the next digital frontier. I'm Danny, and this is a new episode from English Plus Podcast. So, the Internet of Things, or IoT, it sounds intimidatingly technical, but at its core, the concept is surprisingly simple. For most of history, things were just, dumb. A chair was a chair. A street lamp was a street lamp. They did their one job and told us nothing. The Internet of Things is the process of taking these everyday, dumb objects and giving them a digital brain. It's about embedding them with sensors, software, and a connection to the internet, allowing them to collect and exchange data. Think of it like this. We are giving the physical world a nervous system. The sensors are the nerve endings. They can feel things like temperature, motion, light, or pressure. The internet connection is the spinal cord, transmitting that sensory information. And the cloud, or data centers, are the brain, processing that information to make intelligent decisions or trigger actions. An action is carried out by something called an actuator, the part that actually does something, like unlocking a door, turning on a light, or adjusting a valve. So the simple formula is physical object plus sensors plus connectivity plus actuators equals a smart thing. Now let's break this down into two main categories. First, there's the IoT you can see and touch, the consumer IoT. This is your Nest thermostat, your Amazon Echo, your Apple Watch, your Ring doorbell. These devices are designed to make our lives more convenient, efficient, and personalized. Your fitness tracker monitors your heart rate and sleep patterns, giving you granular data about your health. Your smart fridge can, in theory, tell you when you're out of milk and add it to your shopping list, though sometimes it feels more like a solution in search of a problem. Well, this is the fun, flashy side of IoT. It's cool, sometimes a bit gimmicky, but it's an industry worth hundreds of billions of dollars. But the real behemoth, the invisible giant that is truly changing the world, is the industrial and civic IoT. This is where the technology moves beyond convenience and into transformation. Take manufacturing. In a smart factory, machines are prepped with sensors that monitor their health in real time. Instead of just waiting for a critical piece of equipment to break down, which could shut down an entire production line for days, the sensors can detect subtle variations or temperature changes that indicate a future failure. This is called predictive maintenance. The system can automatically schedule a repair before the breakdown happens, saving millions in downtime. Or look at agriculture. Farmers are using IoT to deploy sensors across their fields to measure soil moisture, nutrient levels, and acidity. This data is beamed to a central platform, which then tells the irrigation system exactly how much water each specific part of the field needs. No more wasting water by flooding the whole area. Drones can fly over crops with multispectral sensors to identify disease or pests before they're visible to the human eye. This is precision agriculture, and it allows us to grow more food with fewer resources, a critical task for a growing global population. Then there are smart cities. This is where IoT promises to revolutionize urban living. We're talking about smart traffic lights that can analyze traffic flow in real time and adjust their timing to reduce congestion. We're talking about smart garbage bins that send a notification to the sanitation department when they are full, allowing for more efficient collection routes and preventing overflow. We're talking about a smart energy grid that can intelligently manage electricity flow from various sources, reducing blackouts and integrating renewable energy more effectively. Well, this all sounds amazing, right? A seamless, hyper-efficient world where everything just works. And the potential is truly immense. But we have to talk about the flip side of this coin, because every connected device is a double-edged sword. The first and most obvious risk is security. Every single smart device on a network is a potential door for a hacker. And we're not just talking about someone messing with your smart lights for fun. In 2016, a massive cyber attack took down huge chunks of the internet by hijacking an army of unsecured IoT devices like webcams and digital recorders. Hackers have demonstrated they can take control of connected cars, and security researchers constantly warn about the vulnerabilities in everything from smart locks to medical devices like insulin pumps. When you connect the hospital's life support systems or a city's power grid to the internet, you have to be absolutely certain that it's secure. The stakes are terrifyingly high. The second major concern is privacy. All of these devices are harvesting colossal amounts of data about us. Your smart speaker is always listening for its wake word. Your GPS tracks your location. Your thermostat knows when you are home and when you are away. Your shopping habits, your viewing habits, your health metrics, it's all being collected, aggregated, and analyzed. This creates a data profile of you that is astonishingly detailed. The burning question is, who owns this data and what are they doing with it? Is it being used to simply sell you more stuff? Or could it be used by insurance companies to set you premiums? Or by potential employers to vet you? The lines are incredibly blurry, and the regulations are struggling to keep up with the pace of technology. Well, this creates fundamental tension. The convenience of IoT is often directly proportional to the amount of personal data you're willing to give up. And finally, there's the challenge of interoperability. In a perfect world, your Apple Watch would talk flawlessly to your Google Home device, which would talk flawlessly to your Samsung smart fridge. In reality, we have a collection of walled gardens. Companies want to lock you into their ecosystem. This lack of a universal standard makes creating a truly seamless smart environment difficult and can be a huge headache for consumers. It also creates problems when cities try to integrate technologies from different vendors. We are still a long way from a universal language for things. So, where's this all headed? The future of IoT is inextricably linked with two other powerhouse technologies: 5G and artificial intelligence. The widespread rollout of 5G and future 6G networks will provide the high bandwidth and low latency, meaning faster speeds and less delay, the ones needed to connect billions more devices reliably. AI will be the brain that makes sense of the torrential downpour of data that all these devices will generate, moving from simple automation to true intelligent decision making. My friends, the Internet of Things is not a future trend. It is the present. It is a ubiquitous, invisible layer of technology that is already reshaping our world. It offers a future of unprecedented efficiency, sustainability, and convenience, but it also presents profound challenges to our privacy, security, and autonomy. Our job as citizens of this new connected world is not to be afraid of it, but to be informed. We need to understand the trade-offs, demand accountability from the companies building this future, and thoughtfully decide how much of our lives we are willing to connect to the ghost in the machine. Well, my friends, that's the Internet of Things in a nutshell, of course. Remember, if you really want to understand more about it, one podcast episode is not enough. You have to dig deeper, search for information for yourself, and learn more about it. And maybe tell me, share the information that you learned that I didn't mention here in this episode. Share it with me in the comments on my website or on my Patreon page. But now it's time for us to focus on language. We're going to dig in a little deeper to find out about these words from context, to take our vocabulary and speaking to the next level. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Okay, that was a whirlwind tour of our connected future. As you can tell, talking about technology means using some specific and powerful vocabulary. But the great thing is, many of these words, once you understand them, can be used in all sorts of non-technical situations as well. So let's slow down and dissect some of the key terms we used so you can add them to your conversational toolkit. Now let's start with a word I used to describe the IoT itself: ubiquitous. I said IoT is becoming a ubiquitous, invisible layer of technology. Now, ubiquitous means present, appearing, or found everywhere. It's a fantastic high-level word to describe anything that has become incredibly common. For example, we can say, in the 21st century, smartphones have become ubiquitous. You can also use it for non-tech things, by the way. You can say, for example, coffee shops are ubiquitous in most major cities. Or the artist's style is so popular that imitations have become ubiquitous. It's a much more elegant way of saying everywhere. All right? So that was about ubiquitous. Next up, let's talk about seamless. We talked about the dream of a seamless, hyper-efficient world. Seamless literally means having no seams, no visible lines where two things are joined. Metaphorically, it means smooth and continuous with no apparent gaps or problems. It's often used to describe a user experience. For example, the transition from my phone to my laptop was seamless. All my files were already synced. You can use it to describe anything that flows perfectly. For example, the team's coordination was seamless, leading to a quick victory. Or she moved between the different topics of her speech in a seamless way. So that was about seamless. Now let's talk about interoperability. It's a mouthful, I know, but we mentioned the challenge of interoperability between devices from different companies. Well, this word refers to the ability of different computer systems, devices, or applications to connect and communicate in a coordinated way. In simple terms, can your Apple stuff talk to your Google stuff? That's what I'm talking about when I say interoperability. But the concept of interoperability is useful elsewhere as well. Think about different departments in a company. For example, you can say, the lack of interoperability between the marketing and sales software is causing us to lose leads. Or you can use it even in a government context. You can say, for example, for the new policy to work, there must be interoperability between local and federal agencies. It's about different systems working together effectively. All right? That's about interoperability. Now let's talk about two tech terms, bandwidth and latency. Now we said 5G will provide high bandwidth and low latency. Now in tech terms, bandwidth is the maximum amount of data that can be transmitted over an internet connection in a given amount of time. Think of it like the width of a pipe. A wider pipe allows more water to flow through. And the same thing applies to bandwidth. Now, latency is connected, but a little bit different, of course. Latency is the delay before a transfer of data begins following an instruction. Now, think of it as the time it takes for the water to start flowing after you turn on the tap. High bandwidth and low latency means a very fast, responsive connection. But of course, you can use these metaphorically if you want. You can talk about your own personal bandwidth. For example, I'd love to help you with that project, but I just don't have the bandwidth right now. It means you don't have the capacity, the time, energy, or mental space to take on more work. Now, I know it's kind of strange, but it can be used. You can also talk about latency in human terms. For example, there's high latency in communication with that department. It takes them days to respond to an email. Well, maybe that's a little bit more common than using bandwidth the way I just showed you. But it's possible, and it's up to you if you want to use it or not. That's about bandwidth and latency. Now let's look at another word. Let's look at granular. I said your fitness tracker gives you granular data. Now, granular means resembling or consisting of small grains or particles. When applied to data or information, it means highly detailed, looking at the small individual components. For example, the report was too high level. We need a more granular breakdown of the sales figures by region. You can use it to describe any detailed approach. For example, she has a very granular understanding of the historical facts. So that was about granular, my friends. Now let's talk about vulnerability. Now, we talked about the vulnerabilities in IoT devices. A vulnerability is the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. Now, in cybersecurity, it's a flaw that can be exploited by a hacker. It's a word we use all the time in a personal context, by the way. For example, we can say he showed great vulnerability when he admitted his fears. Or the country's reliance on a single food import is a major economic vulnerability. So that was about vulnerability. Next, let's talk about predictive maintenance. Now, this is a great concept to understand. It's using data to detect potential failures before they happen. The idea of being predictive is hugely valuable. You can apply it to your own life. You do predictive maintenance on your car when you change the oil on schedule, rather than waiting for the engine to seize up. Now, you could even apply it to relationships. For example, checking in with my friends regularly is a form of predictive maintenance for our friendship. Now, I know, again, this is not very common, but you can use it if you want. And now let's grab a term from the industrial world, legacy systems. Now, while I haven't mentioned that in the episode, it's crucial to this topic. A legacy system refers to outdated computing software or hardware that is still in use. Now, companies often face the challenge of integrating new IoT technology with their old, reliable legacy systems. Now, you can use legacy to describe any old way of thinking or operating that's still around. For example, the company's legacy mindset about remote work is holding it back. Or you can say, he's still using a legacy flip phone from 2005. So that's a legacy system, my friends. And finally, there's the word that makes things happen, actuator. Now, we said an actuator is what carries out an action, like unlocking a door. It's the muscle of an IoT device. Now, while it's a very specific engineering term, it helps to understand that in any system, you have sensors, that's the input, and actuators, that's the output. Thinking this way can clarify any process. What's the trigger and what is the action? In a business process, a customer complaint, that's the sensor input, should trigger an actuator, like a customer service representative making a call, and that's the action output. So there you are, ubiquitous, seamless, interoperability, bandwidth, latency, granular, vulnerability, predictive maintenance, legacy systems, and actuator. Powerful words to help you describe our increasingly complex world. And now for our speaking challenge. One of the most important communication skills, especially when talking about technology or any complex topic, is the ability to explain it simply using an analogy. An analogy is a comparison between two things, typically for the purpose of explanation or clarification. For example, if I want to explain the difference between cloud computing and edge computing in IoT, I could say this. Think of cloud computing like a city's central library. It's massive, holds almost all information, but it can take time to travel there to get a book. Edge computing is like having a small, curated bookshelf right in your living room. It has the books you need most often, and access is instantaneous. You don't need to go all the way to the library for your favorite novel. See how that makes an abstract concept feel concrete? So, here's your challenge. Pick a complex topic you understand well. It could be from your job, a scientific concept, a financial strategy, anything you want. And your mission is to explain it to a friend in 90 seconds or less using a powerful, simple analogy. Record yourself on your phone. And don't worry about being perfect. Focus on clarity and creativity. Now, can you make someone understand something difficult by comparing it to something simple? Well, that's a superpower for communicators. So make sure you practice doing that. And now let me move to our discussion questions. Now, we've downloaded a lot of information about the Internet of Things. But the most important part of this conversation is figuring out what it all means for us, as individuals and as a society. That's where you come in. Here are 5 questions to spark some thought and discussion. And I'd love to see your perspectives in the comments. Now, of course, you can always reach out to me on my Patreon page. And again, when I say my Patreon page, don't be afraid. You can become a Patreon subscriber for free. And then later on, if you decide you want more and you want access to more of the things I create, you can subscribe to a tier. But of course, you can always subscribe to Patreon for free. But anyway, let's get back now to our questions. My first question is about the convenience versus privacy trade-off. Where is your line? Now, from smart speakers to fitness trackers, we are constantly asked to trade our personal data for convenience. Now, where do you personally draw the line? Now, think about this. Which smart devices are you comfortable having in your home or on your person? And which feel like an invasion of privacy? Is there a type of data like location, health, or conversations that you would never be willing to share no matter the benefit? Well, think about that and let me know. Next, we'll talk about the invisible watchers, industrial and civic IoT. Now, while we worry about our smart speakers, the bigger data collection is happening in our cities and workplaces. What are the biggest potential benefits and dangers of large-scale IoT implementation in public spaces and industries? Now, think about this. Consider the promise of safer, cleaner, more efficient cities. Now, weigh that against the potential for mass surveillance, data breaches, or algorithmic bias in decision-making. Is the trade-off worth it? Well, think about that. And next, let's talk about the security nightmare. The question is, who is responsible? Now, when a fleet of smart toasters brings down a major website, or a person's smart lock is hacked, who is ultimately to blame? Is it the customer's responsibility to secure their devices? Should the manufacturer be held liable for shipping a product with security vulnerabilities? Or does the government need to step in and create mandatory security standards for all IoT devices? Well, think about that. Next, let's talk about the skills gap and the future of work. Now, the IoT revolution will create huge demand for new skills like data scientists, cybersecurity experts, while potentially making other jobs obsolete through automation. Now, how should our education systems and societies prepare for this massive shift in the workforce? Now, think about it. What is the responsibility of companies to retrain workers whose jobs are automated? What should schools be teaching children today to prepare them for the jobs of 2040? Well, think about it, my friends, and let me know. And now my final question is about the smart illusion. When does a thing not need to be smart? Now, we've seen a flood of bizarre smart products, from smart water bottles to smart salt shakers. Is there a point where our obsession with connectivity becomes ridiculous? Now, think about it. Discuss the difference between meaningful innovation and technological gimmickry. What makes a smart device genuinely useful versus just a novelty? Now, share the smartest or dumbest IoT device you've ever encountered. I'm genuinely curious to hear your opinion on these questions. And of course, there are no right or wrong answers, only a fascinating conversation to be had. And with that, my friends, we come to the end of our episode for today, or shall we say we're disconnecting for today. Now, we've journeyed from the smart coffee pot on your counter to the vast invisible network that is quietly rewiring our planet. Now, I hope I've given you a clearer picture of the Internet of Things with all its dazzling promise and its profound perils. If you want to continue this journey with me, and I certainly hope you do, the best way to do that is by becoming a part of the English Plus ecosystem. Now, you can find transcripts for the episodes, deep dive articles, engage with our discussion questions at our website, englishpluspodcast.com. Or if you even want to take it a step further, you can unlock all of our content by subscribing to English Plus Premium on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon. On Patreon, you will find different tiers, and you can choose the tier that fits you better. Or, of course, as I told you earlier, you can become a free member on Patreon and join the community there and have direct access with me and with the other community members. And finally, thank you for lending me your time and your curiosity today. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and stay thoughtfully connected. I'm Danny, and this was another episode from English Plus Podcast. I will see you next time.